Good evening, everyone. My name's Greg LaFond. I've been with the club for about 3 years now. So it's been great, very educational. In fact, I think my first time I came to a meeting, I met the person who sold me my lathe. So it's been great. So I wanted to find a way to give back, and so I thought I would show how to drill and ream a chair leg hole in a seat. Okay, so if anyone knows Lost Art Press with Chris Schwartz and his stick chairs, this is basically it. So I don't consider myself a chair maker. I have made some chairs, but the reason why I'm here is I never thought I would. I would look at chairs and I would say, okay, there's definitely something going on there. I don't understand it. I envisioned lots of jigs. And when I came across the method from Chris Schwartz, I was like, oh, is that all? I think I can do that. So I brought with me this. It's a convenient size to talk about, but it's also the first chair I ever made. So we had a time where all the kids went to remote learning not that long ago, and my oldest had gotten old enough that the table rather, was basically sitting on her thighs, and she was hanging off the chair. So I said, okay, we need chairs, and we need a matching table. So I said, okay, I've seen this, I think I can do this. So I made a set of chairs, and what's nice about this technique is it's not just chairs, right? So you can make legs. The backrest uses the same method. I made a table, same thing. So chair legs, table legs, okay? So it's a very powerful method. I've used the same thing for like a chopping block for my spoon carving, and a couple other things. So back when I did this, I had no lathe, so that influenced some of the tools that I picked up to start with. So just keep that in mind. So chairs, when they talk about the legs, they talk about two angles, splay, how much it goes out this way, and rake, so how much it goes forwards and back. Right? So what I was originally worried about is I was going to have to keep track of two angles at the same time when I drilled. And there are chair makers I've read and seen pictures where they actually do that. They'll have two bevel squares on there, and they're drilling, keeping track of two things. Which to me, I've never tried it. Maybe it's very easy, but it just seems very intimidating. So there's this technique where you have these two angles, and you can change them around. You still need two angles, but if you make one of them vertical, then it becomes a lot easier to deal with, right? So I'm going to flip this over. I'm not sure if the overhead camera will pick it up, but I have some lightly drawn lines in here that I meant to erase, but never got around to it. And they're what we're called sight lines. So I'm going to take one and point it this way, and this leg should look roughly vertical, right? So now all I have is one angle that I have to deal with. Okay, and that basically is the method. So by the end of tonight, you come away with it and say, is that all? Then I've done a good job, and that's what I really hope. Okay? So what I'd like to do is basically just show where you go from rake and splay to getting to what they call the resultant angle and the sight line. So I had seen this done by a chairmaker named Peter Galbert, and I really liked it, so I hope I can do it justice. So if we're talking about splay, okay, so this one, when I drilled it, it was 17 degrees, so hopefully it looks roughly the same. I made it taller so everyone can see, okay? And then if we're talking about rake, okay, that's this right here. This one, actually, this is a back leg, so it's raked back 20 degrees. Now, I should say that when we're talking about these angles, they're off of vertical, off the seat, okay? So that's 20 degrees off your 90, okay? So you have these two angles, and they form, a 90. Okay, so they're basically like this right here. So if I carry this distance out here and this distance over here, draw my hypotenuse, that's my leg right there. So I'm not sure if everyone can see it. Okay. So I went back to my notes and I saw that I had a 50-degree sight line and a 25-degree resultant. And when I drew it all out and then measured it, so 25-degree resultant and 50-degree sightline. So that's basically where it comes from. Okay. So, but you don't have to do that if you want to work off a plan. So I have the plan here that I'm working with. And I managed to forget the plan roll and get it crunched up, but this is what you might buy. Okay, so you have your seat plan. You've got a bunch of lines on there, and these are your sight lines. Okay, and then you read in the directions what the resultant angle is. So one thing to keep in mind when you're buying something like this, you want to understand if the plan maker intends for you to drill from the top down, which would actually be like this, or if you're drilling from the bottom up, which is then like this. So either way works, the angles are the same, but you need to know which way you're tilting, right? Otherwise you'll have a funny looking chair. So for this chair maker, Chris Schwartz, it's drilling from the bottom, and then when you're done, you would flip it over and then transfer your spindle deck holes. So I've already drilled and reamed 2 holes, and even though in this chair they're all 23 degrees resultant, I did this to highlight a point. So one of the biggest ways that I can screw up a chair is when I take the same bevel setting for the back legs and use it on the front, or the front, use it for the back. So if they don't match, which this chair happily does, you can end up with a pretty strange looking chair. Especially when you get in a rhythm, you get 2 done, you're like, oh, I'm on a roll now. You do your 3rd one, you're like, oh. So it's always a good idea, take a break, do 2, put it aside, reset your bevel angle, and move on. We need a few tools, not many, which is really neat. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to drill some holes. So Chris Schwartz really recommends these wood owls, which are really nice. So I'm not sure if the camera can pick that up, but you're talking about 3 spurs, and you've got a pretty long tip. And the tip's really important because you need enough distance between your spurs and the tip so that you can angle without hitting. So I tried this with some brad points, some nice brad points, and the tip isn't tall enough to actually be able to tilt it over. So you end up having to start your drill vertically, and then you slowly bring it over, and to me it's a little nerve-wracking. So I do like this. It is a little on the expensive side if you're not going to do a lot of them. So there are other options too, like I bought this spade bit a number of years ago. It's a wood owl. I tried it a couple times when I was turning a pine board into Swiss cheese, practicing. It works okay. It doesn't go quite as fast as that, but it's certainly a viable option. So we talked about drilling holes. You're going to need a way to measure angles. So you have some kind of sliding bevel. Okay. You can use a variety of different ones. The 2 things that I think are very nice is if it doesn't move, which is good. And since we want to condense this down into 2 angles, one of them being vertical, it should be square. So this one actually isn't particularly square, which is why I don't use it anymore. But you don't have to. So you can take and chop saw or miter gauge on your bandsaw, or you can do something like this. Where it comes in really handy to have something that's adjustable is if you drill your first leg and you're off. I learned that it's better to try and match your off leg than to just try and do a better job matching it the next time, because having the 2 legs look the same is more important than hitting that number. Okay, so the last 2, what makes the whole system work is your joinery tools. So we're making a conical tenon and we're making a tapered hole. Okay, so the conical tenon is this right here. It's from Veritas Valley. It makes basically this right here. Okay, so it looks like a giant pencil sharpener, but unless you're working with cedar, it's a lot harder to do. So the key is minimal stock removal for that, and then to make the matching is this right here. Okay, they sell different ones. Some you can use in a brace. This one works very well in a drill. The nice thing for me is that the angles match, right? They were machined to match, so I don't have to worry about trying to do something on the lathe where I'm going to match this angle with my tenon, or actually the other way around. So these two match, as long as I use them, I get a pretty nice fit. As far as setting angles with a sliding bevel, there are lots of different things out there. So I found a website, actually through a blog post on Lost Art Press, where you can just basically make a protractor any size you want. So, I measured what the radius was for my larger bevel square. You take little sliders, make it whatever size you want, print it out, and I just glued it down. But you can buy nice things. This for me has worked okay so far. Okay, so our goal is to put legs into this, so I figured I would introduce the legs. So this is what I'm using for this chair. This is ash that came down on our property. So I split it, rived it, shaved it on the shave horse. So I know the fibers are running well from end to end. Then I tapered it down, then I let it dry. So I had done this one last October of last year, so it's been air drying since then. And then I roughed out the tenon on the lathe. So I used half-inch Storby step center, which was nice because I want to get down to 5/8 and not have to leave a little washer that I had to cut, so I could taper this all the way down. I used a rough and gouge, and I just took a series of passes. I had originally planned to basically size this and then work my way down, but I had seen Peter Galbraith talk about using basically a visual cue. So this just fits into the bed of my lathe, and I'm able to look over the top of the piece, and I can follow this down, and it was amazing how close I could get it. So sometimes I had, a few shavings on the bottom, sometimes I had a few shavings on the top, but it was never that I had to spend like 15, 20 minutes trying to get this two made up well. So this works pretty well. The only thing I would say if I could do it differently is, my tool rest is pretty narrow, so I would have built this up taller so it could go over the top of the banjo. As it is, it just has to sit to one side of the banjo. Excuse me. So you'll notice that this is larger than my tenon, so this goes out to about 1 1/8 inches. So when you put it in there, you have to make sure you turn and leave yourself enough clearance so that you can take a chip, otherwise it'll want to bounce out. So you see this one, I had already bottomed it out. Let me see if I can get another one. It's nice to have a faceted leg so that you have something to grip on.
The number 2 leg?
What's that? Oh, yeah. Actually, this one is number 3. I already... So how I know I've cleaned up with the leg is before I take it off the lathe, I turn a spiral with a pencil on it, and I use that as my witness mark. So as I'm cleaning it up, I want to make sure from the tip all the way up here, I've removed all the pencil. And it also shows me if I've got a dip someplace. So for this process, I kind of think of it as using both steps of a 2-step process. That's the way I've heard Chris Schwartz talk about it is, so basically you're going to drill a hole, and if you drilled a big enough hole and you want to make a cylindrical tenon, you're done. You drill the hole, stick the leg in, you're done. For this, what's nice is then you have a second chance. So if I drill the hole off angle, I can then ream it and try and correct my angle and then get it right. So I've set this for 23 degrees. I'm going to move this so that we have a little better view for the camera. I'm going to go with slow speed. And I've positioned this so I won't drill into my workbench. That's a lesson that generally I have to learn only once. So what I'm doing is I have a line that goes from here I set the bevel square on it. So I sight along this up here and then up the seam of the drill. So that's one angle. And then I tilt my head to the side and I'm looking to try and see if I have an even gap all the way along here. If I brought it up too close, I would be interfering with the chuck. One of the other nice things is if you happen to have a small bevel as well, this is a good time for it. And I realized I didn't quite set this one correct. So one of the things I forgot to do, which is a good idea, is clamp a board underneath so you don't get some blowout. So I have a bit of blowout. Generally, it's not too bad with those. So I can take a 5/8 dowel, give it a little jab into there and see how close I did. So not bad, okay? So that sets me up a little bit better when it's time to ream. So I'm going to actually switch and ream this hole out. Just want to double check that I didn't move my angle. So I only run this at slow speed and I only do it for short bursts and then I have to clear the chips out. For me, I find it challenging. There's not a lot straight on here, so I'm looking at just this short distance of my chuck and trying to align that with my bevel. And then for this, I really try to lock my body together. My arms are into my sides, feet planted. And for the first one, so you can see there's a lot of play, right? So I have a cylindrical hole, I have a tapered cutter, I don't have anything guiding the bottom. So I want to take it nice and easy. This is one of these things where you can make big changes unintentionally when you start off. Okay, you can see that I'm pretty far off this way. And I find that...
Move the drill, I can't...
Oh, thank you. Okay. So let's move this way. And I find this happens to me all the time. So what I feel is going on is you have this cylindrical hole and I'm missing one corner, right? Because it's at an angle. So there's nothing to resist the cutter. So it's hitting wood on this side, not on this side, so it wants to move this way. So I should mention this right here, important, this is what I'm using to check because of course my legs are tapered, right? So I can't use that. So this is not only what I use to check this angle, but this is also when I sharpen the blade, how I reset. the blade and the tool. A little bit. It doesn't feel like I'm forcing it. I'm basically really trying to hold it steady. And I'm not pushing down really hard. So I find when I push down, the edge will grab and it's going to go someplace and probably not in the direction that I want. So at this point, I'm trying to build enough contact surface on there that it's riding pretty steady. Because small movements will make a big difference at this point. And then later, when it's much deeper, you have to work much harder to, to adjust it. So I got very lucky. So I should say, to manage your expectations, I don't think I'm going to hit my marks, right? So it's very difficult. What matters more is that they're matched. So on the back legs, I got very lucky and they both came out the same, and I was very ecstatic. Normally, I'm just not unhappy. So. So this is basically wash, rinse, repeat until you get it deep enough that this tip goes to the bottom deep enough. So it's a lot of stopping, measuring, checking. Okay, so I need to go back this way some more. But I feel that it's got enough of a seat that I want to show you something other than just this. I saw this in a Peter Galbert video. He's got this video on Vimeo called Foundations of Chair Making. It's really good. But he has a method where he can use the chair leg almost right away. It doesn't matter what the shape is. And he's able to use the center point on the top. And I thought this was very interesting. So basically, as I understood it, it works on the principle is you're taking and creating like a visual plane that you can sight down, and then you're looking in both directions to line this up. So I'll show you what it looks like. So you can see I have this line drawn here, which is 90 degrees to my sight line. Okay, so you can take a block of wood, it's got my angle on it, and I've brought it around the top and the bottom. So if I put that parallel to my sight line and I line it up, now I have a visual mark here and a visual mark here. And if I bring them into the same plane, so it looks like it's one continuous line, then my eye is lined up with that 23-degree plane, and I can sight this dot right here, the center hole, and see where I am. And it shows me the same thing, that it's too far this way and needs to come back. So that's one. And the second one is the same principle, but we want it to be vertical. So if I put a square and I bring my eye so that I can see the sight line, and I line up the square, and I look to see where the center hole is, and it looks pretty good. So that to me is, that one direction is more useful to me, because I struggle sometimes with, so I can see this gap pretty readily, but if this is leaning this way or that way, I'm trying to see whether this blade is in the middle of the mass of the cylinder, which sometimes for me is difficult. So neat method, but I've never seen, in my limited experience, that this shows it's perfect and the other way shows it out. I've always seen they both show it out the same way. But it is, I find it neat. I've been able to steer it right up into the very last one, which is pretty neat. I'm not sure why, but it still, you can move it a little bit. And I've actually gone too far where I thought I've been in the hole that I already done, and I move it. So what I've wondered, and I haven't tested yet, is, what if I drill a stepped hole and I leave something at the bottom that better constrains this narrow tip? I wonder if it might make it a little easier, but I haven't tried it.
And how deep do we go to hide the whole taper on the?
Absolutely. So this is a good example. So you can see right here maybe that it straightens out. So if you have the clearance up higher and you keep going, you'll end up with a 5/8 dowel that comes out the end here, right? So for this leg, if I stuck this one in here, I'm looking for that dowel to come out the outside, and I can feel when that straight-sided tip is through the tapered hole. Okay? So I still have a ways to go. So I have plenty of chances to correct. And if only that it happened on the last one instead of this one.
Why not use a drill press for this?
Thank you. So yes, you certainly can. When I first built that chair, I didn't have one. And I still don't have one that's big enough for this. So when I've seen people do that, they have a large pillar drill press with a large table on it, so that they can set up the angle. So one thing I didn't mention was, depending upon where I'm trying to go with the hole, sometimes I find it's easier to start this in a certain orientation in the hole. So if I'm struggling with this way, sometimes I'll start it so I have a lot of reference on the top and the bottom, because I can find if I start it, I'm not sure if the camera can actually pick that up, but if I start it where I'm contacting on the sides here, I have more slop and I could get off angle. So I like to try and start it like this. Okay, so I come back this way. Okay, probably have 2 more and then I'll be through.
excuse to buy a new drill with a body that's got more square lines on it.
I'm sorry?
You could buy an excuse to buy a new drill with a body that's more square.
That would be nice. If you know of a model, I'd definitely be interested in hearing. This is quite old. So I used to try this with a brace, and I really liked being able to have the extra torque, and I liked being able to do it very slow. But the problem with the brace I have is it doesn't hold it rigidly, so when I was trying to lean the brace, it would just flex. Okay, so I think I got one more, and so I'm not unhappy.
If you sell these shares, do you price them by your state of happiness?
I don't sell chairs. I would be very broke if I.
If you get to that point your angle was off, would you reset your tool to that leg and then try to match it?
Exactly. Unless it was too far off. So the sister to that one right there was the one where I took the back angle and started doing one of the fronts, and it was too far off because it looked funny. For me, if it looks okay, then it is okay. So what I had to do there was I had to put in a patch and re-drill it. But I think for this, I think it's pretty forgiving. So I can drill the other one. If people are interested, I can answer questions. Yes?
Yeah, when you first started, you talked about finding that included angle.
Resultant angle, maybe?
Resulting angle.
Yep.
The two splays in the backwards. Did you say there was a formula for that?
I'm sure there is a formula. So
How do you find it?
So in the case of the plans that I have there, it was in the text that came along with the plans. Sometimes it's in a drawing. But if you were playing around and you wanted to design your own thing, which I haven't really done, I mean, you could certainly set up some formulas in like Excel. There's an analog computer that Lost Art Press sells, like one of those. You see them back from the 70s. We have the slide card that moves.
I remember doing it back in the 1970, 77 in an engineering course. It's called descriptive geometry. You used to be able to lay it out. I remember doing it once.
Okay. So I've not gone there. So I'm at the point where I'm just reading off of a plan.
The way to do it, that's all I'm saying.
No. I mean, the easiest way for me is.
Computer, then you can do it easily. You know, get into SolidWorks or something and turn it into.
Sure, you can definitely cat it out for sure.
A high school kid taking a trig class, you can do it.
I have to say I did have geometry flashbacks with this for sure. Yes?
You ever find it when it comes through the top of the seat, that the top of the dowel is too loose, but it fits the rest of the way?
So I have done that a little bit. What's nice with these is they will match as long as you drill them correctly, but if I try to make adjustments too fast, I've made egg-shaped holes, which then can be challenging. One of the nice things about this I didn't mention is they talk about putting a saw kerf in here to a certain depth and then wedging it from the top. So that basically takes up a bunch from the top.
You got a wedge to it?
Yeah, from the top down.
Okay.
Yep. So did that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
So what's the price point of the tools you've got?
Thank you. So I bought all these a long time ago, but I went on Lee Valley's website. So this and this together, I think were like just under $100. So not terrible. I think this was 25. It leaves a nice surface. So to me, it's worthwhile. I bought this like 3 years ago, and I think it was less than $20. So one thing I didn't mention, what's nice about this is it's longer. So you'll see chair makers use longer bits or bit extensions because it's easier to hold the angle, right? So if I only have, like, I can hold it within a 1/4 inch, my 1/4 inch means a lot less when I'm way up here than if I were way down here. So I don't know what the quality is out there in spade bits nowadays, but this worked okay for me. In pine. I also haven't tried hardwoods.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there an advantage of cylindrical over cylindrical tape?
For me, it's more forgiving. So I've tried several times to do cylindrical tendons, and I've either made them too tight and started to split the seat, or I've made them a bit loose. So that for me is the advantage with this. The one I would say is, you know, this is the largest that I'm aware of, at least that Lee Valley makes. There might be others out there. So like if I want to do something beefier, then I would need to move to like a cylindrical tenon.
Do you use anything to join your legs between the two, or the front, you know, side to side, front to back?
So that's an undercarriage, and this will be the first chair where I've done that. So the rest of them have been without that. So I'm looking forward to that. Yes?
You cut the legs to length after you're done seating the joint?
Yes. So it's an interesting question. Going back to this, right, so we mentioned the angles come off the seat here. You might be able to see that the seat tilts a little bit this way, okay? So once you've got all your legs in, you're finished with your joinery, you can put it on a flat surface, figure out where you want this in space. You know, if you have a level surface, you can put a level up here, put some blocks on it, get it to tilt back, get it level this way, and then you go along with a pencil and you trace lines around all your legs, and then you can use those to cut it flat. There's an interesting stool from Peter Galbert he calls it his perch, and when the seat's like this, all the legs point this way, because when he puts it down, the seat tilts this way. So it's very interesting. It highlights, you know, the relationship between the angles here versus that can be independent of how you decide to have your seating surface.
What's the weight limit?
What's that?
What's the weight limit on it?
So both my kids sit in this. My wife sits in these. I've sat in this once, and I felt it flex, and I don't sit in them because I don't want to have to explain to one of my daughters why I broke their chair. But also keep in mind, this is what I had. This was pandemic, so this is actually a 2x4 from Home Depot that had very vertical grain that was just sitting in my shelf. I was like, that looks kind of nice. So I cut it to length, jointed all the edges, so there's probably like four in here, and the grain's going this way. It'd probably be a little stronger if the grain had been going the other way, but I was using what I had at the time. You know, these were actually my dog stock for my workbench that I had bought, you know, like 6 months ahead of time. They happened to be out of hickory, so I knew that they would stand up for the legs when I made it because I didn't have a lathe at the time. Yes?
Final assembly, is it just glue and or just pressure, or?
Yes, so I'm using the old brown glue, so it's like a liquid hide glue. One thing I will say is every time you dry fit this, it feels a little resistance, but when I've glued with that, it doesn't feel the same because it's very slippery, so it goes in. So you have, like I have split a seat before, giving it one whack too much, and it's slippery enough that it, you know, it basically wedges the seat open a little bit, which is frustrating. Any other questions? So I'll just briefly mention, you know, this isn't anything that I came up with. This is all stuff that's out there, which I think is what's neat. This was the book that I originally came across this from. This is from Lost Art Press. He calls it his design book, and it covers a lot of, you know, staked furniture, so I'm not sure. That should look a little familiar. One of the cool things is you can buy the hard copies, but he gives the PDFs away, I believe, for free. So a great way to, if you're not sure, you can download it, read through it. He's got a stip chair book, which is also really great. These are where I first encountered this, but the information's been out there for a long time, and I just never came across it. This was a book that's been out earlier than that. You can get it through the library. It's great, lots of information. And if you're a visual learner, like I said, they've got great videos, both Peter Galbert and Chris Schwartz. So hopefully this is of interest. Hopefully someone's like, oh, maybe I'll try this at one point. Because if anyone's going to be able to make chair legs, it should be Turners, right? Okay. Thank you, everyone.